for a second helping. So got all this time now. God, again, I just thank you so much just for the miracle you coming into this earth all those centuries ago, and all the dominoes that had to fall into place to get to the point where sinful little troublemaker like me could stand up here and hold a microphone and sing worship to you because you changed my life. So you did centuries ago. I thank you for everybody here. I thank you that anywhere we are at any time, we just stop whatever we're doing, just sing praises to you. And never a bad connection, don't worry about Wi-Fi, don't worry about anything. You're just prayer. I pray you hear what we're going to do tonight, God, that it makes you want to lean forward, that you enjoy what we do, that you fill us up. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Angels we have heard on high. I don't know why I picked a song. It's got that long after I ate all that barbecue this afternoon. We're going to try to get it in one breath. All right. Go ahead. Next song is the first No Weather.
All right, thank you all. You know, Christmas is a special time of year, isn't it? My wife and I, after the service this morning, we drove back over to Dalton. We actually live in Chatsworth. It's a little bit outside of Dalton, but we met our children over at a restaurant right off the interstate. We met one of our kids. I have a son that's a youth pastor out of Athens, and he and his wife and their new baby, our third grandbaby, has been with us for a week and will be with us about another week and a half, which is wonderful. We love seeing them. I have a feeling it might be wonderful seeing them leave after another week and a half. It's been great having him here, but you know, just a special time. Yesterday we met with all of our kids and our family, had our Christmas yesterday as they all are married and have their own families. We try to reserve that day of Christmas for them to go to their other families. And it is just a busy time of year, isn't it? Do you ever get where we work so hard, and you know, now after Halloween, it really becomes a Christmas season. We throw Thanksgiving in there, but nobody really pays attention to Thanksgiving. We're kind of geared up for Christmas. As a matter of fact, I saw my first Christmas commercial. I always try to think about when my first Christmas commercial of the year comes on, and for this year, I saw it the second week of October. So 2 weeks before Halloween, I saw the first Christmas commercial. I said, wow, we're about to consume Halloween and eat and Thanksgiving and just start focusing on Christmas from about September all the way to the end of the year. It is a wonderful time, but it's, you know, one thing it's I think we got to be careful is we get so caught up in it, right? I love the holidays. I love the lights. I love the Christmas shows, except I'm not a big guy on Hallmark Christmas. But my wife is a big woman on Hallmark Christmas, so I sleep a lot as she's watching TV. I love the presents. I love the family get-togethers. I love that we all, you know, if you work, you kind of get extra time off, and you got to get kind of slowed down a little bit. You do some things you don't normally do. I played disc golf for the first time while my sons were here. I don't do that normally. Went shooting. I do like to shoot guns, and we went to the range with my boys. One of my boys is a staff sergeant in the United States Army, so he's well trained in that area, and so it's always fun to go with them. So it's great to get caught up in all that stuff, and if we're not careful, we'll get to the holiday, because it gets busy, right? We've been busy. Our calendars are full, things going on, and if we're not careful, we get to the end, and we've checked off our list, right? We bought our gifts, we made our dinners, we saw our family, we went and looked at lights, or we maybe did something special, saw a special presentation. And if we're not careful, we end that season, and if we were to be very honest with ourselves, we have gone this whole season that we have set aside to recognize God invading the earth, and we don't take really any time to pause and say, wow, Lord. And I sometimes think we get so caught up in the hustle bustle of the holidays that we lose the magic of what Christmas is really signifying. When Jesus was born, there was not snow, there was not lights, there was not shopping, there's not family events. And sometimes we need to go back. And so tonight what I want to do, I'm going to actually ask you to turn to Luke chapter 1. Beginning in verse 26. Now, Barry told me y'all get out at 9 o'clock on Sunday nights. Is that right? No, that's right. Now, I understand I can preach to 9 o'clock, but you're leaving around 7. And I understand that. And so I'm going to hold to your time that you have. We're going to go really a chapter ahead of what we really see the traditional Christmas story. Normally when you think of the traditional Christmas story, we go to Luke chapter 2, and it's really the first 20 verses. Is what we really look at. I remember when I was growing up in Maryville, Tennessee, every year in the Blount County Daily Times, they would put the Christmas story in. And it was a half a page ad with Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 20. I don't think they do that anymore. It's probably politically incorrect and would probably get in trouble over there in the Maryville, Tennessee area. And so they don't do that anymore. So that's when we think about the Christmas story, and Mary and Joseph and the angels and the shepherds and the wise men, even though we know the wise men really wasn't that day, the manger, they came about 3 years later. We know all of that. That's where we read about all these events. I want us to look before that. And we're really going to start really when the birth of Jesus is announced, it's a pretty big deal. Remember, the people had been promised a Messiah. Throughout the Old Testament, there's about 300 prophecies about Jesus coming. Pretty cool. If you just read throughout the Old Testament, you can see prophecy after prophecy after prophecy that talks about Jesus. It even talks about his death. It talks about his resurrection. It talks a lot about what's going to happen when Jesus comes. And so the Jewish people, they've been longing for the Messiah. And one thing you begin to realize is they really didn't understand what they were longing for. When they thought about Messiah, they were thinking about political ruler, right? They were thinking about this ruler coming to deliver them from Roman oppression. As a matter of fact, if you study the life of the disciples, really they didn't fully understand who Jesus was until after resurrection. Because when he talked about Messiah, and even though at times he would tell them, I'm going to leave you, at times he tried to sway them from that. They always thought he was the political ruler. Now, we know now that he was the Messiah, but he was much more than a political ruler. He was one that would come to save the world from their sins. He was the one that would offer the final sacrifice. He would bring in the new covenant and allow the opportunity for you and me to have fellowship with God. So it's a pretty big deal. So let's just turn to Luke chapter 1. Let's start in verse 26. We're just going to read through this text together. I'm just going to talk about a few things as we walk through the text together tonight. It says this, in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy. Now, Elizabeth is a key player. We know she's a key player. We will see why in just a few moments. But in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a village in Galilee. Now, when you think about the angel Gabriel, don't think about a halo and wings and a harp and him coming down. Angel Gabriel was a pretty massive dude. I mean, he was a pretty powerful looking dude. He's a warrior dude. So he shows up, and it's a pretty pivotal scene, a pretty amazing scene I can imagine. But it says that he goes to Nazareth. Now, just note that chronologically, this is the first mention of Nazareth in the Old Testament or the New Testament. Now, when you think about Nazareth, you ought to just make a mental note. Nazareth is remarkable because it was really unremarkable. Well, think about it. Nazareth is remarkable because there really wasn't anything special about Nazareth. It was unmentioned in the Old Testament. It's not mentioned in the Apocrypha. It's not mentioned in the writings of Josephus. Nazareth was in the general region of Galilee. We don't know really a lot of good things about Nazareth. It didn't have a good water supply. That was very important to cities of that day. It didn't have a good water supply. Only one fairly weak well in the center of the village. However, we all know about Nazareth. Why? Who came from Nazareth? Jesus. Jesus. Nazareth will always be identified because of Christ. He's known as Jesus of Nazareth. Now, when you think about it, I know you're thinking, why do you focus so much on Nazareth right now? Think about it for just a moment. All of us, and us is you and me included, right? All of us, we're pretty unremarkable. Let's just be honest. I mean, we're all pretty unremarkable. But what makes us remarkable is being connected to Jesus. I think that's so cool. He can take us in all of our weaknesses, and we all have weaknesses. He can take us in all of our struggles, and we all have struggles. He can take us in all of our imperfections, and guess what? We all have imperfections, and he can still use us to do great things for the kingdom. You see, it's not for our own personal glory, and it's not for our own personal praise. He uses us so that he can be given the glory, and he can be given the praise. I think that's so important as we walk this walk on this earth trying to follow Jesus. Because understand, That's really what being a Christian is. We have now, in this new decade, this new world, in this life, as I've grown older, we have started wearing Christianity as just a badge, right? It's a title. You talk to a lot of people, they're going to say they're a Christian, right? It's almost like I'm a Catholic, I'm a Christian. And there's a lot of people, they say they're a Christian, they never walk with Christ, they never seek out Christ, they never seek to follow Jesus, but yet, because they identify as going to church somewhere or growing up in a church, they're Christian. Just note, if you're a follower of Jesus, if you say I'm a follower of Jesus, it's very simple. Followers of Jesus follow Jesus. Pretty simple, isn't it? Followers of Jesus follow Jesus. And one thing I learned as I talk to people a lot and I share with people, if you say you're a follower of Jesus and you look at your life and you're not following Jesus, then you have to ask yourself, am I really a follower of Jesus? See, I love that I'm not perfect. When I first became a pastor, this was over 30 years ago, I was called to I got saved when I was 15 years old. About a year after I got saved, I was baptized at that same time. About a year after I was saved and baptized, at 16 years old, I went to my pastor's study at Dots Memorial Baptist Church in Maryville, Tennessee, and I went to Pastor Morris Sanders, and he just passed away this last year, and I said, you know, Pastor, God is calling me into the ministry. And he said, that's great, Craig. I think God can use you to be a great pastor one day. I said, oh no, I don't want to be a pastor. I thought pastors were nerds. I thought they were a little odd. I thought they were different. So I wanted to be a youth minister. I was a youth minister for about 5 years, and God called me to be a pastor. And guess what I learned? We are nerds. We are a little odd, and we may be just a little different at times. But when I first started serving the church, understand, I started pastoring when I was 23 years old. Could you imagine a church calling a 23-year-old man to be their full-time pastor? That was me. I didn't know anything about pastoring. I wanted to preach. Didn't know a lot about preaching. I was going to Carson University there in Jefferson City, Tennessee. I was getting a bachelor's degree in theology. I didn't even know what that meant. Never been to college before. My dad had never been to college before. Nobody in my family had been to college before. When I was called to the ministry, they said, go to the Baptist college. I went to Baptist college. Later on, I went to New Orleans Seminary, got my master's and my doctorate at New Orleans Seminary. I've done a lot of schooling, spent a lot of years, and you know, there's still nothing really special about me. I'm glad God doesn't look for the remarkable. Aren't you? Aren't you glad He doesn't look for the remarkable? But here's the thing. There are a lot of men I meet, they think they're remarkable. I mean, I know guys, I've seen pastors, they strut when they're sitting down. That's crazy. They think they're remarkable. And man, they make them draw a crowd. They make them get people in the seats. You know what I've learned a lot of times, and I love the pastors I meet because I get to minister to so many men, like I said, 650 churches. That's pastors and ministry staff members. Don't know how many that I have to reach out to, but I'll never probably reach out to every one of them in 5 years' time. And so when I meet them, I will tell you this, I'm glad of the pastors I meet right now. Because as I was growing up and as I was in the ministry, I met a lot of men, they loved crowds, they didn't like people. They loved to have a crowd to preach to, but they really could care less about the people. The pastors I meet now, man, they love the Lord. They love their churches. What job in 1 week do I get to see a pastor that pastors a church of running about 30 to a church running about 200, some to a church running 400, all the way up to churches running 3,000 and 4,000. I meet pastors all the time. And I will tell you this, they all struggle. They all have things in their life they're dealing with. And they're all thankful God is using them. There's nobody remarkable. We are just people being called by God. And when we're called by God, whether it be a pastor or a deacon or a Sunday school teacher or the lady that sits faithfully each week in the pew and prays, if God has used you, that's remarkable. That's what made Nazareth remarkable, was Jesus. Now let's look what happened. It says, again, 6 months of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a village in Galilee, to a virgin named Mary. She was engaged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of King David. So here's Mary. She's just minding her own business. She's just living life. She's just doing things that Jewish women of that day did. She's making plans. She's dreaming dreams. And while living this simple life of a young woman getting ready for marriage, we read in verse 28 that Gabriel appeared to her and he said, "Greetings, favored woman, the Lord is with you." Isn't that awesome? Gabriel begins by giving her a little encouragement. He says, "Greetings, favored woman." Favored woman, God's with you. Now, why is he encouraging Mary? Because Gabriel's about to give her a curveball. Gabriel is about to rock Mary's world. He begins by saying, "You're favored." He begins by saying, "The Lord is with you." And then the curveball comes. Verse 29 says, confused and disturbed, Mary trying to think what the angel could mean. The angel said, "Don't be afraid, for you have found favor with God." Now here's the announcement. You're going to conceive and give birth to a son. You will name that son Jesus. And I love this in verse 32. He will be very great. Isn't that awesome? That's one of the first testimonies we have in the scripture about who Jesus is going to be. You'll give birth to a son. You're going to call that son Jesus, and that son is going to be very great. The Greek word there is a word that is megas. It means, when you study that Greek word, it means splendid. It means prepared on a grand scale. That's an awesome way of thinking about the arrival of Jesus. That's an awesome way of thinking about the announcement of Jesus. It's a great way to describe this child because no one has influenced history more than Jesus Christ. Charles Spurgeon wrote this: "Is it not proven that he is great? Conquerors are great, and he is the greatest of them. Deliverers are great, and he is the greatest of them. Liberators are great, and he is the greatest of them. Saviors are great, and he is the greatest of them." Now we're studying Mary's story, and we're going to end here in a moment by looking at Mary's song. But understand, during Mary's story, even in this focus on Mary, we are reminded that Jesus is great, and indeed he is. He's great in his nature. He is great in his position. He's great in his provision. He is great in his achievements. He's great in his sufficiency. He's great in his sovereignty. He's great in his grace, and he's great in his salvation. Understand, Mary was not favored because she was Mary. That's why we don't worship Mary. That's where we veer off from our Catholic brothers and sisters, right? Mary was not favored because she was married. Mary was favored because she was going to have Jesus. She was entrusted with Jesus. And we need to understand, we are not favored because of us. We're not special at all. We are favored because of Christ. Jesus is what makes each and every one special. Makes each and every one of us special. It says, he'll be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord will give him the throne of his ancestor David. He will reign over Israel forever and ever. His kingdom will never end. And Mary then asked this question, how's this going to happen? Your translation may say, how can this be? For I am what? A virgin. A virgin. So we all understand this. A virgin being found with child is not normal, right? As a matter of fact, it's really not possible. It breaks the rules of science. And we got to be careful because there are liberal theologians that will tell you that Mary wasn't a virgin. And they will tell you that Mary is not a virgin because it's scientifically impossible. Now, I got my first whiff of that when I was a freshman in college. In my first New Testament theology course, I had a professor at a Baptist college in East Tennessee stand up and say, the virgin birth is not a reality. Now, that rocked my world, Barry, because I thought getting a theology degree from a Baptist college, I thought I was going to go to Sunday school for 4 years and get a college degree. Kind of rocked my world. And for a moment, I thought, well, maybe it's not a big deal. But then I began to talk to some pastors. And I thank God along my studies, I had men who had walked with God, had served God for years. I had them come alongside of me, and I began to understand that the virgin birth is not just important, it's essential. Don't ever let anyone deny the virgin birth, because if you take away the virgin birth, you're taking away deity. If you take away Jesus being born of a virgin, you're taking away the fact that he was God's son. That is what is so important. And we read, the angel replied, the Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you, and the baby will be born. So the baby to be born will be holy, and he will be called the Son of God. Now we go back to Elizabeth, verse 36. What's more, Elizabeth, your relative, has become pregnant in her old age. People used to say she was barren, but she has conceived a son and is now in her 6th month. So the angel gives Mary an object lesson. He says, look at your relative Elizabeth. She's an old lady. She has been barren. Elizabeth thought she would never have a child, and she is pregnant in her old age. Even though people said she was barren, she's now conceived a son, and is now in her 6th month. I love what verse 37 says. The word of God will never fail. That's a great translation. I really love what other translations say. Yours may say it. Nothing is impossible with God. Boy, that's a great lesson for all of us. That's how God is. I think that is a great lesson for Lakeview right now, because you're in this time of transition. You're in this unknown. You're in this, who's going to be our next leader? Who's going to be our next pastor? And some of you are probably beginning to say things like this. Who's going to want to come here? Who can we come that will be willing to serve faithfully as we have seen Steve serve for the last 9 years? Who's going to do that? Because I hear churches do that all the time, because they see how society has changed. They see how the church is not the center of the community. They see that there's not a lot of young men seem to be wanting to go into the pasture anymore. And I would tell you this, just as the angel told Mary, we need to remember, church, nothing is impossible with God. And I love Mary's response, verse 38. I am the Lord's servant. May everything you have said about me come true. And the angel left her. Look at verse 39. A few days later, Mary hurried to the hill country of Judea, to the town where Zechariah lived. She entered the house and she greeted Elizabeth. At the sound of Mary's greeting, Elizabeth's child leapt within her, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. So the baby that Elizabeth was carrying leaps as Mary entered the house. Elizabeth gave a glad cry and exclaimed to Mary, God has blessed you above all women. Your child is blessed. Why am I heard your greeting, the baby in my womb jumped for joy. You are blessed because you believe the Lord would do what he said. That's a great statement. You believe the Lord would do what he said. Understand, Mary is an unmarried girl. Do y'all know how old scholars believe Mary was? 13 or 14. So she's a 13 or 14-year-old girl who's been betrothed. She's been chosen to be married to Joseph. And Joseph's story is pretty awesome. We ain't got time to look before Christmas at Joseph's story. And can you imagine this 13 or 14-year-old girl finds out she's pregnant, about to be married? Do you understand that the news of her pregnancy involved great risk to Mary? For her to say, let it be in my life, what you just said, that's such a big deal. Because her saying that, her realizing her pregnancy, she knew that she risked being rejected by her family. See, imagine that 14-year-old girl going to her family saying she's pregnant, but she's never been with a man. She risked rejection from her family. She risked being rejected by her community. Nazareth probably had about 200-300 people in it. City Nazareth is very small. 200-300, I've heard maybe 400. That's a pretty large guess. So imagine the gossip that would circulate in that small town. There's a gentleman named Dr. Shalom Ask, A-S-Q-U-E, and he wrote a book entitled Mary. And here's what he wrote. Jewish traditional wedding ceremonies included the requirement for the bride to sit in front of her father's house for 3 days. She was to have her hair loosed and dressed in white to signify her virginity. There she would sit to receive greetings and good wishes from one and from all. But Mary was found to be with child, or as they would have said in those days, she already had a baby beneath her heart. Do you suppose Mary went through with this custom? What kind of greetings from passerbys would a pregnant girl dressed in bridal white receive? If you were the parents, would you allow your teenager to set as a spectacle for all and insist that she was still pure? She risked her community. She risked her family. She risked her future stability. Understand in Jewish culture, now women don't get mad at it. In Jewish culture, the ultimate goal of the woman was simple. The goal was to marry a good young man so he could support her. Joseph was a good young man. And if he left her, what other young man would try to take her? She was risking her future. She also risked the possible loss of life. Deuteronomy tells us this. Suppose a man meets a young woman, a virgin who is engaged to be married, and he has sexual intercourse with her. If this happens within a town, you must take both of them to the gates of that town and stone them to death. The woman is guilty because she did not scream for help. The man must die because he violated her, violated another man's wife. In this way you will purge this evil from among you. You read Joseph's story, when he found out about Mary's pregnancy, what did he do? He put her away privately. Now, I've heard some people say that sounded awful. He put her away privately, but by law, he was supposed to accuse her publicly. He could have taken her to the town square and accused her of having an affair, and it would have taken her life. Now, if you read on through, and we're going to go through this, verses 46 through 55, and we'll go quickly here because it's 6:45. It's Mary's song. It's a Christmas carol. It's probably one of the first Christmas carols. It's Mary's song of after her hearing of the announcement that that she would give birth to the Christ child. I want you to see she begins in verses 46, 47. We'll just start reading it. She begins with talking about how amazing God's grace is. She says this, "Oh, how my soul praises the Lord." Isn't that awesome? She doesn't say, "Oh, me." What's happening? I'm sure she was scared. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, but her soul praises the Lord. How my spirit rejoices in God my Savior, for he took notice of this lowly servant girl. And from now on, all generations will call me blessed. So she sees her littleness. I know that's really not a word. She sees how small she is. She's small in both the world's eyes. She's small in God's eyes. In her mind, she is. She felt totally unworthy to be chosen by God. I mean, she's just another poor girl among the thousands who lived in that day, these poor lives in backwater towns of a captive nation. She sings in verse 49, "For the mighty one is holy. He has done great things for me." I love, you don't hear her whining about what's going on. She says God's doing great things. He shows mercy from all generations. Shows mercy from generation to generation to all who fear him. You know what she's saying? God, you didn't give me what I deserve. You showed mercy. You withhold what I have coming, just as you do for all who fear you. You are a merciful God. In verse 51, we see how powerful God is. She sings, "His mighty arm has done tremendous things." The New American Standard Bible says this, "He has done mighty deeds with his arm." Then she talks about the child. In verse 51, the latter part, she will talk about how the child will overcome the proud and the haughty. It says he has scattered the proud and the haughty ones. She's singing of radical reversals here from what the world values. See, she's saying all the things the world values, wealth and power and fame and fortune, all those things are going to be turned upside down or right side up, however you look at it, through the Christ child. Christ wasn't going to be that mighty deliverer that's going to deliver them from Roman oppression. He's not that mighty warrior. He's their spiritual Messiah that will deliver them from their sin. You know, I think about today, and this is just a side note. How many people we know that they have power and think they are strong and have all the answers? I get so frustrated during political season. Politics is frustrating year-round now. But especially during political season, when all the celebrities come out and tell you who you need to vote for. And I think of these folks that come out, and I like their movies. I'll go to the movies, but I know they're making a gazillion dollars, and they're telling me how I need to vote. They can't remember how someone like I live. I've met business executives that have made a lot of money building big businesses and think they have it all. And some really want to guide our lives and influence our lives. That Mary reminds us that it's our Lord's mighty arm that has produced wonderful deeds. It's our Lord's mighty arm that is there to guide us. So we got to make sure we don't fawn over actors or sports figures. We don't make fame or wealth the greatest goal in our life. We don't really need to despair over which party wins or which party loses who we're voting for. You know, honestly, we don't need to lose sleep over how unfair the boss may treat us. Because God is a sovereign God. His mighty arms are there in our lives. You know, I deal with people who are hurting, and I was talking to them. I talked to a church this past week, a pastor and some staff that just dealing with some stuff, and they're hurting. Just there's stuff going on all in their lives, and we hold on to God's sovereignty. You know the thing about God's sovereignty? You believe God's sovereign, don't you? Right? Do you believe God's sovereign? I hope you do. Now, if God's sovereign, everything that happens in our lives, understand this, everything that happens in our lives is either is either caused by God or allowed by God. Right? If God's sovereign, everything is either caused or allowed by God. Now, for several years when life had thrown me a curveball, when things weren't going well, and now I was thinking about God's sovereignty, I'd want to try to figure out, well, God, did you cause this to happen? Or did you allow it to happen? Now, when I answered all that, really, what I was trying to do is I was saying, God, why? Why? As I've grown and I've raised children and now grandchildren, and my wife and I, we've had mortgages and car payments and, the stress of life, and as I've wrestled with all that and the struggles come, what I began to realize, when something bad's happened, I don't need to worry about whether he caused it or allowed it. All I got to remember is he's never surprised. Isn't that cool? He's never surprised. And so, I might be surprised. As a matter of fact, I might be bowled over. I might have my world rocked. But I follow a God whose loving arms is in control of everything. I think that's such a precious truth. It says in verse 52, he has brought down the princes from their thrones and exalted the humble. So the child's going to exalt those who have exalted themselves. Verse 53, he has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away with empty hands. I don't think he's really talking about food. He's filled the hungry with good things. He's just saying, I'm sufficient. I'm going to take care of it. And I think that God's looking for people who are hungry for him, that we can just lean on his sufficiency. You remember Paul talking about that thorn in the flesh? I think it's in 1 Corinthians. He wrote about that thorn in the flesh. We don't know what that thorn in the flesh is. Some have said it was an asthma condition. Some have said it was a blood condition, like diabetes, hepatitis. Some have said he had a mother-in-law. I didn't say that. No, nobody's really said that. It was a thorn. I think the Bible doesn't give us that thorn. Because it was just, if we knew what the thorn was, we'd make it too specific. But he had a thorn, and what he said, I entreated, I prayed earnestly 3 times for God to remove it. Did. 3 times Paul prayed. The Bible, I beseeched, I prayed intensely for God to remove it. This isn't a casual, thank you, Lord, for the day prayer. And God didn't remove it. And what did he learn? His grace is sufficient. Because you're my weakness, and his power is perfect. Learning to rejoice even in the bad time. I hate that verse. Rejoice always. Again, I say rejoice. Because I can rejoice when it's good. I can't rejoice when it's bad. I got to fight to rejoice. But I've learned my darkest times may be the biggest opportunity of gospel in my life. It's when I'm going through dark times, is when people around me are watching, and that's when I have a better opportunity share really what Jesus is and me in my life. He closes, she says, he has helped his servant Israel, and remembered to be merciful. For he made this promise to our ancestors, to Abraham and his children forever. She remembers the covenant that God made to Abraham and his offspring. And decades have passed, and she recognizes that promise of being a blessing didn't have an expiration date. I love that word forever at the end of verse 55. So, just a reminder, Christmas is coming. Enjoy your families. What time? I'm getting good on time. Enjoy your family. Enjoy the parties. But don't let these next few days go by and forsake taking the time to say, okay, God, I just need to pause from all the stuff around me and to reflect on that original story and thank you for coming to earth. Because we know that Christmas is not the end, it's the beginning. We know that really our Super Bowl is not the Christmas season. Our Super Bowl is Easter season. It's when we recognize that that little baby grew up to be a man that lived a life as a man, but very different from a man because he was sinless. And he died on that cross for you and for me. And that's why we gather today as believers. Amen? I want to pray with you. I hope you have a great Christmas season. Next Sunday, we'll be back. I'll be focusing on prayer. I believe it's Acts chapter 4. The men are released from prison and they go to their people and they have a great prayer meeting. And we're going to take some time on the last Sunday of 2025. Isn't that amazing? And we'll have services Sunday night again, okay? But no service this Wednesday or next Wednesday.